Good evening and welcome to the New Haven Club of the National Association of Negro and Business Professional Women's Club Incorporated Community Engagement Committee's presentation on domestic violence. I am your host, Ashley Jones, and on behalf of our club president, Taretha Green, I would like to welcome everyone tonight. Next slide, please. Karina is the mother of four beautiful and talented young women, as well as the grandmother of five gorgeous and even smarter grandchildren. She is the president, founder of Mothers of Victims Equality Incorporated, or MOVE Inc., a small nonprofit organization in West Haven, Connecticut. Karina was thrust into the fight for domestic violence awareness and activism after the tragic deaths of her daughter Alicia Wiley in 2013, daughter Shaquanika Brody, and grandbaby Myjaya Richardson in 2017. She's committed to educating and unsilencing the voices of victims from all aspects of dating and domestic violence. She dedicated her life to advocating for victims to not only have a voice, but to also have equal rights, ensuring that victims, their families, friends, and communities are able to gain or regain a happy, peaceful, safe life. At this time, I would like to welcome our special guest, Karina Martin.
Thank you, Mrs. Ashley, for that wonderful introduction. I tell you, you make me sound so intriguing. I was like, ooh, I wonder what she got to say. But anyways, appreciate this opportunity to be able to come to speak with all of you queens tonight. I have been looking forward to this for quite some time. Thank you, Madam President, Madam Vice President, all the esteemed chairs, and everyone that's out tonight for having me to speak and to be able to tell my story. I apologize in advance if anything triggers you or if anything makes you feel in any way saddened. I wish I could tell a better story in a better way, but the only way that I can walk on my path of healing is to tell my complete and full truth. And with that being said, um, as it was stated, my journey, my life changing journey, started in April of 2013. To be more specifically, April 24th at 3:16 p.m. in the afternoon, when an officer, I affectionately refer to him as Officer V, came to my residence in West Haven to do what they refer to as a well check. A well check is when someone inquires of the police department to go and check on the well being of an individual or person with concern. And I never heard of a well check before. So when they were coming to check on my daughter, Alicia, at the time, she was attending Eastern Connecticut State University. She was a sophomore, and she was going into her studies for her finals. Alicia was majoring in psychology and minoring in biology. So she had a lot of time where she had to commit to studying. And we knew this. She was blessed to be able to commit to her major very early because she had accumulated a lot of credits even during high school. She's been going to college ever since she was a sophomore in high school. So she was able to start accumulating her credits fairly early and being able to do prerequisites which allowed her to declare her major early. With that being said, we did not disturb her because she did have a heavy study load. And so when the officer came, as you can imagine, I was perplexed about why he would be inquiring about her whereabouts and doing a well check on her when she was supposed to have been at campus. Upon further inquiry, where he was very patient with us, um, well, with me, um, I was told to contact the Eastern Campus Police Department, um, and there I had spoke to Sergeant White, I believe that's her name, her last name, yeah, Sergeant White. And she and I were talking, and she had informed me that Alicia had not been on campus since April 20th. That was the last day that she was reported being seen on campus. And they thought that she might have went home because she was seen getting into a car, leaving the campus. Um, I don't think anyone can imagine the horrific feeling, that wave of just my whole life being knocked out of me. Um, and the officer, he stayed with me for a little bit because it was the start of his shift. And he asked me repeatedly, I just remember him asking me, "Are you going to be okay? Are you going to be okay?" And I told him, "I just need to call my daughters and I need to call her boyfriend." Um, there was always suspicions, but there was nothing to the point where we thought it would have been something like what we would go through for the next 22 days. In that period of time, from we started our searches April 29th, and unfortunately on May 17th, um, the day before we were going to do a peaceful walk in the neighborhood of her boyfriend, thinking that that would influence him to giving up more information, because up until that point we were all over the state of Connecticut. Um, by that time, it had we got international help from Australia, Africa, Japan. They were all over chiming in, France chiming in to say that they were putting up her pictures all over, with the hopes of finding her. Um, we thought that, just maybe this would push him to revealing where she was. I never for a minute would have thought that it would have, I'm sorry, I never thought it would have had the outcome that it did. Um, on the 17th, there was a couple of news feeds about um, partial remains being found.
Mm.
And my daughter, who just turned 16 the day before, and this whole thing has totally ripped her. Her and Alicia were extremely close, and you know, when a family should be planning for a 16th birthday party, we weren't doing that anymore. We were all encompassed in trying to search for, my daughter, their sister, our loved one, and someone not thinking sent her that news feed, and I had to go pick her up from school because she just was so hysterical. And they had in that feed said that it was Alicia. Um, but I called the police, the detectives that were working on our case at the time, and they said they did find some remains in an area that we had just searched 3 days prior, and that they would do a fast preliminary with the DNA that they had already collected from us, and they would let me know. Um, Unfortunately, May 18th, which was the day of the walkthrough that we were going to do starting in Beardsley Park at 5:13 a.m. I'm sorry.
Okay. Take your time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
the uh, the detective's captain called me and he asked would it be okay for them to come to the house, and I told him no. It was Captain Green, and I said no, I don't want you to come. And he said, I'm sorry, Miss Burke, we have to. And they came from Rocky Hill, and however long it took, I don't know. I just wanted to. I wasn't already sleeping, and I just wanted to act like this whole thing was just a dream, because the whole thing, after so much that we had learned about this boy, this demon, that it was like we were living in a twilight. I was living in a twilight zone, and unfortunately, when they did come after I got the call, um, they did confirm that the partial remains that they found outside of Beardsley Park, about a mile and a half from her boyfriend's house, were the remains of my daughter Alicia. And when I say remains, he didn't just murder my baby; he dismembered her.
Mm.
And I had to learn from police officers that the only remains that they found was a partial foot and a partial arm. And to this day, that's all I have of my baby. And every time I hear of someone finding bones wherever, my heart stops, because I don't know if I'm going to get that call, because our DNA is still in the database, because they they have never recovered anything else. Um, so fast forwarding through two mistrials, one due to the fact that they just couldn't determine whether or not to go for second degree murder or manslaughter, because of the fact that they never had, as they call the smoking gun, which is the murder weapon, or a body. The second mistrial came because we had some brothers and sisters that were on the jury that decided that they didn't want to see another brother go to jail and stay in jail without having proof that he was the one that actually committed the murder. I thought that it was over, and but we had some very good, persistent prosecutors, as well as their managing prosecutor supervisor, the ADA, who was determined to see justice served. Thank God. And so we went into a third trial. The third trial was to start in September. We had already gone through um, jury selection, and I've been at every process that there was for all three trials. And unfortunately, August 18th of 2017, just uh, 2.5 weeks, 2.5 weeks before the third trial was to begin, my oldest daughter, Shakwanika, who was 29 at the time, and she was the vice president of our organization. Let me just backtrack. After everything that happened with Alicia, during that process, there were so many things that was not afforded to us. We didn't get the outpour of United Way or Red Cross or anything like that, as you see in so many instances with people that don't look like us. Um, the church that I was an association with, they sent me a plan. That was it. No one came out. I was trying to look on how to do searches, how to not just conduct them, but how to get the community out. And I thank God for the media having such an interest in helping us because that's what brought out a lot of um, volunteers to help with the searches, which is something that at that time I didn't really see either. So, in talking with my daughters and talking with other volunteers and everything, especially for those that look like us, um, I wanted to do something, or we wanted to do something to help other families that went through what we were going through at the time, which we thought were just searches, and to help my daughter Alicia, because, like I said, I was convinced my baby was coming home. I It never entered my thoughts that anything less than her coming home and getting help was going to be the possibility. So when that didn't happen, I told them this would be a way to help us move forward and also help other families so they don't have to go through. That's when I started. We started Mothers of Victims Equality. Through much prayer and supplication, the whole process, I knew nothing about how to run an start an organization, 501. I knew nothing of that, but Jehovah knew, and He knew what He needed for His people at that particular point in time, and that's what we did. So coming to into the third trial, um, August 18th of 2017, we were out, we were doing events, we were talking, and especially within the Black and Brown community, and getting, media coverage and media help to bring awareness about domestic violence and intimate partner violence within the Black community and how it affects everyone, but trying to destigmatize the stigmatization that it just affects the Black and Brown community or those that are in um, poverty-stricken areas or those that have low educational backgrounds. These demographics were not true demographics that were out there, and we wanted to debunk these things. And so that's what we were working towards. So I can't even tell you. It was a monsoon that was raining on the 18th. And the night before, I just got this feeling in my gut and I woke up early. I had to go to the doctor's, but I kept calling my daughter because something to just not sit right with me. So when I got the call from the detectives, I called my daughter and I said, I can't believe this is happening to us again. And she was like, Mom, you don't think that's not what it is. You don't know what could have happened. I said, but he wants to come to us and talk, and that's not a good sign. I know God don't give us more than what we can bear, Queen, but and I'm not questioning him. I didn't question him that day. I was just saying, but God, because when that man told me that my daughter and my granddaughter were shot, I honestly don't know what happened. I just remember I remember being held and my daughter telling me, Mom, stop hitting the policeman because you can get arrested. And I remember him saying, No, I understand. I can't even understand. But he says, No, that's not what this is. And I just remember asking, Well, what about my other granddaughter? And he was like, she had another child, and I said yes. And he said, well, there is a third child that's at the hospital, but I don't know. um I didn't get any details on that one, and I asked, where is she? And I went there. um was brutal. I'm not going to say it wasn't brutal. My daughter was shot, but my granddaughter wasn't just shot. My granddaughter was also tortured. He came back to the house. My granddaughter, she was 9. She got her little sister out um, of the house to go get help. And when he came back, he stabbed my granddaughter 6 more times and slit her throat. Sorry. Her sister that she saved will be 8 this October. She's in the 2nd grade. We just finalized adoption this past November 19th. After a little under 4 years of a grueling, um, very hard custody battle with her biological father that she really did not know. And because the state of Connecticut does not recognize grandparents as being immediate family members, I had to fight to get custody of my own grandchild that I helped raise from birth. Um, but she is doing a tremendous job. She's in the 2nd grade, on the 4th grade reading and math level, after they said that she would have severe mental and learning delays due to her um, um, critical trauma, they call it. Um, it's severe PTSD and severe trauma induced anxiety. Um, but God, again, I can't stress that enough. And I can't stress how He has blessed her. She is the sweetest thing on the face of the earth. She is also 7, so she gets on my nerves. But I thank God for that, for her getting on my nerves, because without that, um, she's been my rock, Queen. She has been my rock, and I thank um, Jehovah God for protecting her, because he was going around the neighborhood looking for her. I don't ask me. I know it was nothing but God. Um, why he didn't, because the highway entrance was right there by my daughter's house. But they found him circling the neighborhood, and he's now serving a gross 85-year sentence um, for my daughter's and granddaughter's murder and torture, and under special circumstances. And Alicia's murderer is serving a full 65 years. He got 60 years um, for her murder, which is the max for the state of Connecticut. But the 5 years that he had served prior to getting his conviction was not credited to his time served. So he will have served a total of 65 years. When asked to tell my story tonight to all of you, I jumped at the opportunity. Every time I do get a chance to tell, I tell it. And it's not because I want sympathy, empathy. That's not it. I want to tell it because we have to know that there is another pandemic out there, Queen. And that pandemic is killing us. Um, we are 2.5 times more likely to die at the hand of our partner, um, that once we are experiencing domestic violence, at the point of exiting. Um, there are some statistics that are up, um, that I really want you to hone in on them. But what I want you to understand too, during the course of this pandemic, these numbers have quadrupled. Um, there are so many more reported cases than there ever has been in the history of those recording domestic violence with the CDC, with the Red Cross United Way, with the domestic violence hotlines and prevention, um, because of the fact that being sheltered or staying in place has left it where we can't escape um, our perpetrators. And it's not just for us women, but it's the children as well. And I know having a small grassroots organization, I have dealt with a lot of overflow in the past few years. And, I have to say that it has pushed a lot of us to report, but there are still so many of us out there that's not reporting, that see things going on and know in our gut that something's not right, but rather than um, giving support in a way where we feel like we're trying to do something, we kind of force the victim into choosing, and they more times than not choose the perpetrator or their abuser. And so that's where I come and I talk to try and shed light on how to support someone through that process, how to develop a safe exit for the loved ones or someone that they know, how to be able to um, not just support mentally, physically, and psychologically, but financially to be able to set our victors. I call us victors. We're not victims anymore because victims mean we're still succumbing to whatever has inflicted or afflicted us. But being a victor means you have overcame, and I know we've overcome. So, but to get out of a situation that you're in, especially when you're you're solely depending upon that person that's abusing or afflicting you. I'm sorry, that's afflicting you. It's hard to think of trying to do it financially on your own when they've been your sole provider. So we just we try to help support in a financial way to get that victor out of their situation so that they can see that they're able to financially sustain themselves. So there's a lot of different attributes and assets and support that we provide through Mothers of Victims Equality. It's not just that you can't just tell someone what they need to do and not give them the tools or the resources or outsources to be able to do it for themselves. I love I say it's an African proverb. Some tell me that it's a Indian proverb, but I know we've all heard teach a man. If you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. But if you teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. And that's one of the philosophies in which we have adapted into the form of if we give women, children, men, because there are men that's being abused too. If we give them the tools that they need to be able to sustain, maintain, and support themselves and know that there's others out there that love and support them, then they will be able to see that they're able to stand on their own and they don't have to succumb to the thought and the psychological abuse that is associated with their abuser, where they tell them that no one cares for them or that no one's going to help them or that they can't do this by themselves. Um, I also have another child that was in a 13-year marriage relationship and a 7.5-year marriage who just recently come out of that within the past year and a half. And that was one of the things, she was extremely ashamed once she realized, even though she had all of this information, to say that she had fell into that kind of abyss. And a lot of people say, well, what's going on in your family? What's your children must have been raised around of a lot of violence. Your children must have sat up there and seen you getting beat and all that. No, that's not it. But what I did teach my children, I didn't teach them enough. I thought that domestic violence meant physical, and I taught them what I knew. And knowing research and learning and having the more experience over these past almost 9 years now, well, 9 years to the date, actually. Um, I know now that there's other facets. It's psychological, it's sexual, it's financial, it's mental, it's emotional. There's so many other facets to domestic violence that we don't talk about. And when you're trying to protect your children, you think that you're protecting them in a way that's going to have them grow up to be mature, beautiful women who are contributing to society in every possible way. I thought I had hit the jackpot. All my older children had gone to college. They were in college. They were about to graduate college. I thought I was clear. No one told me that I had to worry about my children after they became women. So I say to all of you, for those of you that wonder if it was something that I did, I'm living with a lot of you. I'm dealing with it. I'm going through therapy twice a week to deal with the things in which I felt that I should have taught my girls as young women. But we have an opportunity now to change those circumstances for our women, our young women that's coming up, our teenagers, our even our middle schoolers and our elementary schoolers, because they're getting younger and younger with victimization. And we have to be able to educate our children in a proper way to know that it's not and it's not just someone that we're dating. It could be a family member, it could be a friend, it could be a boss, it could be a coworker. There's so many facets to it, and this is what why I want to do events such as this to let people know that let's not fall back into the stigmatization that or of the demographics, or the stereotypical types. Oh, well, they had to been exposed to domestic violence, so or they're undereducated. No, that's not it. Or there's a financial. Yes, I was a single parent, but I worked 3 or 4 jobs to provide for my children. Were there times when we struggled? Yes, but it wasn't to the point where they were looking for other people. What had happened to us unfortunately happened to my young women, you know. Um and I didn't know about teaching them about being a young woman in relationships because I was still struggling with that. And that's something that I have to live with. But I thank all of you for listening to me. I hope there was something that you can get out of it. Please read the statistics that have been provided by your sisters in this committee. They've done an excellent job with them. If there's more information that you want, I will, if you could, share my information with you. If there's other times, I pray that this is the first of many times that we would be able to collaborate. There are events that we do, speaking engagements. We do have a podcast for men. We have a support group for women. I'm working within the school that my um, grandbaby, my daughter, goes to now to try and develop a program for our young women and men, to be able to teach them about the other aspects of domestic violence, and intimate partner relationships. What is a healthy relationship? What isn't a healthy relationship? How to make yourself whole before you start trying to be a half to someone else. So those are the things in which has come about all of that. So out of all of my pain, there is a divine and purposeness to the things in which we do now. I'm also working with legislation. I have a petition out about having a national violent offenders registry. I'm working with a few politicians now to get one in the state of Connecticut because we don't have one. There are only 5 states in all of our 49 states, 50 states, and territories that have something like a violent offenders registry. And of those, only Iowa is the one that has a more prominent one that I have looked at to be able to implement further to a tiered national violent offenders registry. Um, so that's basically where I am right now. I know that we only have 45 minutes, so I don't want to take up too much of anyone's time. I want to give the committee an opportunity to go over the statistics that they did work on, and if there are any other questions or comments, to have time allowed for that as well. So again, thank you, Queens, for your time, for allowing me to tell my story, and I apologize again if it has triggered or if it has saddened anyone. But this is my journey of walking my truth. And I thank you all for allowing me the opportunity to tell it to you this evening.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. We greatly appreciate you for being able to do so. You're so strong for doing that, and we thank you so much, Ms. Martin. At this time, I'm going to read off some domestic violence statistics. Every day, there are almost 20 people a minute that are physically abused by someone close to them. That comes to about 10 million women and men a year that are victims of domestic violence. As many as 1 in 4 women and 1 in 9 men face severe domestic violence from an intimate partner, resulting in injury, stress disorders, contracting sexually transmitted diseases, and many other devastating results. On an average day, there are more than 20,000 phone calls that are made to domestic violence hotlines across the nation. In the state of Connecticut, just about 32.9% of women and 33.9% of men have experienced intimate partner domestic violence at some point. An astonishing 1 in 3 criminal court cases has found to be situations of family violence. In just 1 year, Connecticut's relief program served 46,750 victims of domestic violence. At this time, do we have any questions for Ms. Martin? Please note that the website Mothers of Victims Equality Incorporated is listed in the chat. If you have any questions, please put it in the chat for me. And we will move forward with asking. I do see that our Northeast District Governor is on, Ms. Evelyn Streeter Frizzle. Thank you for joining us this evening. Do you have any words for us?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. I do have words, and hopefully these words will be words of comfort to our speaker tonight, Sister Karina Martin. We're sort of connected. Her daughter Alicia was also my granddaughter, so I know how impactful domestic violence can be to a family. It can really. And I must commend her for her strength and what she has been able to accomplish to bring to the table the problems that we face as a country when dealing with domestic violence and being there to support one another. And I thank you guys for bringing her here tonight and us having this much needed discussion about domestic violence and how it affects us, our community of Black and brown people. So I'm feeling a little emotional because this is also like right around the same time that my husband passed away and my granddaughter passed away. So it becomes very emotional. But Karina, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. I love you, and continue to do what you do in the community, because we need to know about how detrimental just the loss of children and young children can be. You know, it's very, very hard. So Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Madam Governor. I greatly appreciate that. And I didn't know that you were on tonight, but that is, yeah, that's my Lily's grandma. Um, and thank you for bringing out that point because I don't know if I did touch on it. I'm sorry. I know I was speaking, the words in which I'm speaking, I sometimes forget what I say, but that is something, it is a devastation. And that's something that I tell everyone all the time, that domestic violence does not just involve the two people that are in it in whatever capacity, man and woman, woman on woman, however you identify yourself, but it involves the whole family. And then it involves the whole community. This is not just a two-person thing. This is a family and a communal thing. And that's what we have to understand. And that's why I say I strive very hard. And thank you so much. And she knows how hard it has been to fight through everything, and the family to have to go through 3 trials, 4 trials, and to sit there and through the midst of it, hear all the stigmatizations and stereotypes that's thrown at your family, and you have to bear it because people don't know and they're just speaking out of ignorance, or just not really taking the time to fully understand, but just coming to their own conclusions, and it does, it takes a toll on the family, and that's something that we need to know, and especially in the Black and brown community, we as women of color, we have to bear so much, but people look at us and think that we have to do it with strength and silence, and I'm here to say no, not anymore. We can still have strength, but our voices can be the strength, that exudes and sounds off every alarm without people looking at us and saying, oh, well, she's just an angry Black woman. No, you can do it with elegance and strength. I mean, with elegance and ease, and and stop all the stereotypes and stigmatizations that's thrown at us simply because we want to voice our feelings and our emotions. It's time for us to stop being silent. It's time for us to speak up, speak out, and stand in solidarity to say not anymore. We don't have to be classified as being angry. We're just being classified. If you want to give us a classification, classify us as victors, a victor of strength.
Thank you again, Miss Martin, for your story. I can probably speak for everybody when I say we admire your strength. And we just appreciate you agreeing to do this evening. Madam President, I see that you're on, Ms. Taretha Green. Do you have any words at this time before we conclude the presentation?
Thank you, Sister Ashley. Oh, wow. Thank you, Miss Martin. I just listened to your story, and I work in this, and when you hear it and you see it, you know what the family, where you have somewhat of an experience with families that have been through this, you understand that is, when you hear someone tell their story, it's a blessing. And I so appreciate you for that. I had the pleasure of talking with Miss Martin a while back and meeting her. Actually, Madam Governor Evelyn Streeter Frizzle introduced us. And the family is one, right? And people don't talk about that. Community is one. So when this affects your family, it affects all of our families, right? It affects our daughters. But I think most important, we need to understand it also affects our men, because there are a lot of men that are in abusive relationships, but because of their you know, the stigma around you have to be tough, you have to, you know, you're weak if you talk about it, they don't talk about it.
No.
And so it's important for us to share this and, you know, be able to tell both our Black and brown boys and our girls, tell somebody, go seek help, get the resources. As a therapist, I actually was on a team that we met every 2 weeks with all this. I met with the city police, the chiefs of police. It's kind of like almost like an SVU team. And we met regarding domestic violence, and I service families through VOCA. So I wish I would have known that. I would try to pass on the information regarding VOCA. VOCA is also a resource for families that have been, who have been in domestic violent relationships, or their children have been exposed to it. And it's a really great resource to have. I just want to say, Karina, I will be in contact with you. You know, I spoke to you, and I'm really, we're gonna do this together. And I am so appreciative as the president of this club that you agreed to do this with us. And moving forward, we will continue. So bless your heart, bless you, Madam Governor. And we as the New Haven Club, we love you, and we will be here for you. Thank you again. And thank you everyone who came out to hear this story and support Ms. Martin. Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes our presentation at this time. If there are no questions, again, Ms. Martin, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you all.
We appreciate you as well. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Well done, ladies. Sound sad, but nice.
This was excellent job. Excellent job to the committee. This was excellent, was really informative, and this was much needed.
Yeah.
If we can, at some point, the committee, we talk about it, maybe